You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hi, this is Lady C.
And this is JT.
Welcome to another episode of The Critical Thought. Now, in the upcoming episode, we're going to be talking about Jehovah's Witnesses and counting field service time. Now, Mark O'Donnell had tweeted the announcements for August 2020. We found it to be very interesting.
And especially announcement number 4, which dealt with our requirements. The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly affected the ministry of pioneers and field missionaries. The governing body understands the challenges and does not want these faithful servants to feel pressured to meet an hour requirement. Thus, until further notice, regular pioneers, special pioneers, and missionaries are not expected to reach a specific hour requirement. We are confident that all will do their best. We hope this provision allows our hardworking pioneers and missionaries to continue to find joy in their service during this challenging time. Yeah, it kind of took me back. We was sitting there at the table talking about it. It reminded us of some videos that we had done on counting time, and it dealt specifically with the hours for pioneers and missionaries.
The first video that we did on this was about why are Jehovah's Witnesses always on the clock?
Got a good question that was sent to me. Why do Jehovah's Witnesses count time? Now, some people, if you're not familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses, you won't be familiar with the term counting time. But if you ever watch comedians on television, this actually forms the basis of a lot of comedians' acts when they're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, you've heard it. Once you get them in your house, you can't get them out. Don't let them in. They'll be there all day long. Well, there's a reason why when Jehovah's Witnesses are talking to you, they seem to just be long-winded. And the reason why is because they are counting time.
And in video number 2, we went into greater detail about how it actually got started, the counting of time. And that video, it addressed the July 1st, 1943 Watchtower. The article was called Righteous Requirements, where literally the Watchtower laid down the gauntlet that we will be counting time going forward.
In our last episode, we started discussing why do Jehovah's Witnesses count time. One of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses are taught, and that is, it's very important to look at the historical context of where a particular teaching or something came from. In other words, what is the root? What is this built on? How did this get started? Who started it? When did it start? How did the concept of having to report how much time one spent talking to people about God come about? How does a religion get its members to have to report each month how much time did you talk to other people about God? Well, we're going to show you how it started.
And then in the third video, we actually did this skit.
Hey, can you pull over at this gas station at the next corner? Because I want to stop and leave a tract so I can get my time started. Okay, I'm ready to go now. Let's hurry up and get to the Kingdom Hall so we can meet the group for field service before we're late.
Now, take a note what they said in the announcement closely. The governing body understands the challenges and does not want these faithful servants to feel pressured to meet an hour requirement.
So when I read that, I was like, well, critical thinkers would ask, who is the persons that came up with the hour requirement in the first place?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it really is. We see that the society, in the letters that they often send out, they'll use the word, we don't want people to be pressured. And so the question has to be asked, who's applying all this pressure? Why is it that someone has to be told not to pressure someone? Because in the organization, putting pressure on people to do their time, that's just a part of the game. You know, sometimes, as they say, you have to listen with a third ear. And they go on to further state in that same announcement the following. We hope this provision allows our hardworking pioneers and missionaries to continue to find joy in their service during this challenging time. Did you notice how they used their favorite word, this provision? Isn't it amazing that the provision is we're going to reduce the time on a bogus system known as counting time? In this organization, many of you may well remember, everything the organization did, they referred to it as a provision. What's interesting is that this is exactly what the Pharisees did. They would put heavy loads on people. And as witnesses, we actually were glad, or we celebrated the fact when the society would make a change. And we would say that was so loving of the brothers to make that change. And many times the change that they made was man-made to start with. And yet they call it a provision. And of course, they never fail to make sure they punctuate it with a scripture. In this case, Colossians 3:23 and 24.
Whatever you are doing, work at it whole-souled as for Jehovah and not for men. For you know that it is from Jehovah you will receive the inheritance as a reward. Slave for the Master Christ.
Isn't this interesting how they apply that scripture? How can you possibly work at something whole soul for Jehovah and not for men when what you're working for is not even required of God? The only people who require hours are the men. It's amazing how the scriptures can be used and twisted any way they want to.
So you can put that scripture anywhere. And that's one of the things that when talking to people after we left this religion, and they would say, well, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses, they always follow the Bible and they know their scriptures. And I said, yeah, they do. But they apply them in the areas where they're trying to prove their point. So basically what we're saying here is that the Watchtower can use the scriptures to say anything that they want to say. And this video is just trying to help you to, like JT said, listen with a third ear. Because when you're looking at the things that they're telling you to do, you have to think about it and not be so quick to just comply with what they're saying, but understand why they're asking you to do it in the first place.
And that's what the critical thought is all about. We want people to learn to do something that we were told never to do, and that is to think critically. When we read something in the publications, we read something that the society has printed, the branch office, whatever it may be, you want to be able to look at it and ask the critical thinking questions. And as we always say, be honest with yourself and the answers. So if you haven't had a chance to see those 3 videos, we invite you to take the opportunity. We'll put the link inside of this video here. And be sure to share your own experiences down below in the comment section about counting time.
This has been Lady C.
This has been JT.
And thank you for being in our audience.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.